Guys, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. In today's video, I'll be sharing my review on the Makeup Revolution stick foundations. These are actually called as a fast base stick foundation, and I've been using these foundations almost for 3 weeks now, and I've gathered my thoughts onto this foundation. I do like this foundation, but there are a couple of things that I don't really like about this foundation. So if you're interested in knowing what I think about this, then please keep on watching. But before that, please subscribe to my channel and turn that bell button on to get notified of my future videos. And now let's quickly get into the review of this foundation. So let's start with the packaging of this foundation. So this is how the packaging looks like. And the packaging is one of those things that I really like about this foundation. It is a really nice beige color with rose gold detailing on it, as well as the Revelation right here is also written in rose gold, which I really like. And on the bottom you can see the shade name of this foundation, which is really convenient. This foundation retails for 850 rupees, and the amount of product that you get is I am kind of unsure about, because on Nykaa it says you get 30 grams of product, but honestly this is the maximum amount of product you get into this foundation, and I'm not sure if you really get 30 grams or not, so I'm just gonna leave it right there. But this foundation retails for 850 rupees, and there comes total of 18 different shades, and these are named as F1 to F18, and the shade that I use is F10. And now before I go into the texture and the longevity of this foundation, I want to talk about the shades for a moment. Now the shade F10, online it is mentioned this shade is for medium skin tone with golden undertone, and also in the tube it looks like it has a really good golden undertone. But once I apply it onto my skin and start blending it out, I feel like the shade kind of leans towards more peachy and towards pinky tones. And in fact, I'm wearing this foundation right now onto my skin, and I'm not sure if my camera is able to pick up that color difference or not, but in real life, as I'm looking at the mirror, I can see the color of this foundation. The shade F10 is not golden for sure. And there is one more shade that I picked up is F13, because F11 and F12 is almost always out of stock. So that's why I picked up the shade F13. And the description of those two shades also a little bit off, because the shade F11 is for medium dark skin tone with beige undertones, and F12 is for medium dark skin tone with neutral undertones. Now here the problem is I'm a warm undertone person, and none of those shades F11 and F12 had warm undertones into it. And then the shade came F13, which is for medium dark skin tone with warm undertones, and that's why I picked up the shade F13. And this shade, when I have it on my hand, it is very dark on my skin. In fact, it is so dark that I use it to contour my face. And I can clearly understand the shade F10 had golden undertone, which kinda goes on peachy pinky onto the skin. The shade in between of F10 and F13 has very different undertone that we Indians are of. Most of the Indians have warm undertones, and the shade F11 and F12 has one with beige undertone and one with neutral undertone. Now you can get away wearing a neutral undertone foundation if you have warm undertone, but still then you don't have as much color option, because after F10, which is for medium skin tone with golden undertone, you get a warm undertone like 2 shades deeper, and the shade I have with me, which is what I use to contour my face with. And there are a lot of people those have shades in between the F10 and F13 with a warm undertone, and that's where I feel Makeup Revolution lacks the most. There is not enough shades for all the different skin tone. Like if it was concealer, I wouldn't mind, because concealer we can manage, but you put foundation all over your face, so it should be as close to your skin tone as possible. Otherwise people will notice that there is something different on your face because the undertone is strong. So yeah, that's about the shade that I wanted to talk about. But the foundation itself is a really good foundation. Now let me explain it properly. The texture of this foundation is really smooth and really creamy. It glides on so effortlessly, and it gives about medium coverage in one layer. Like depends on how much stripes you're putting on your face. If you put like 1 to 2 stripes, it will give like a light layer. If you put 3 stripes, it will give like medium coverage, and you can definitely build up the coverage up to full full coverage with this foundation. It also blends really nicely. Whether you try to blend with your brush or sponge, it blends really nicely, but I prefer to blend it with the brush because it's a cream foundation, and cream foundation generally work better with brushes. So I would suggest use a brush first, and then you can use your sponge to soften everything up. And again, with the sponge, since the sponge soaks up the product, it will give you less coverage than the brush, but it gives more or less same finish whether you're using a sponge or using a brush, because it gives a really nice luminous dewy sort of finish, which I personally really like considering dry skin type. So I like the coverage and how it looks onto my skin. And now before I talk about how long it stays onto my skin, I want to warn you guys that please do prep your skin before you put this foundation on, and also set your foundation really well, because since this foundation is a cream foundation, it has a lot of moisture and oils into it, and that's where the foundation also has its con, because this foundation does not really stay that much by itself. So you have to prep your skin, you have to put a really good primer underneath this foundation, and then put this foundation on, and also set your face really well. And if you do both of this step really well, this foundation should stay a really long time on your face. So keeping that in mind, I want to say longevity wise, this foundation stay about 7 to 8 hours, like with primer and setting it really well with loose powder. And if I talk about how long it stays, if you do not prep your skin, if you do not put primer on your skin, I would say this stay about 3 to 4 hours. After that, it will start to break apart. So the best way you can use this foundation is prepping your skin really well and also setting it really well. Otherwise, this foundation will not stay, even with the dry skin type, because I myself, being a dry skin type, if I do not put a primer on my skin, it just breaks apart after 4.5 hours. So if you're of oily skin type or maybe normal skin type, just think that way. You have to put a primer with this foundation as well as set it really well. And also one thing that I've noticed, if you do not set your foundation well, this foundation oxidizes onto the skin over time. Like if you don't set the face and if you just powder it lightly, this foundation, when it comes in contact with the air, it oxidizes and looks darker and darker towards the end of the night. It does not oxidize one at once, it oxidizes throughout. But if you set your face and if you put tons of powder on your face to set it well, there is not that much oxidation with this foundation. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this foundation. And yeah, now let us see the wear test of this foundation. Alright, so this is how my face looks after 4 hours of wearing this foundation. And this is how my face looks after wearing it for 7.5, almost 8 hours. And let me tell you, I really like this foundation. The only issue I have is I have to powder my face really well. Otherwise, it can get a little bit oily throughout. So yeah. And yeah guys, that's all I have to say about this foundation. I really hope you guys have found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, and also to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already yet. And if you have any other video requests, you can leave them in the comments below, and I will see you all in my next video. Till then, take care. Bye.